Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV, a show for loyalty marketing professionals. I'm Paula Thomas, the founder and CEO of Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV, where we feature insightful conversations with loyalty professionals from the world's leading brands. Today's episode is hosted by Carly Neubauer, Managing Director of Elevate Loyalty, an Australian-based company specialising in loyalty and incentive services. Carly is also the Managing Director of OneTap Group, a UK-based company providing loyalty payment services. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Carly Neubauer, Managing Director of Elevate Loyalty and OneTap Group. Today I'm speaking with Martina Lipp, a loyalty specialist of many years and well known for the revamp and overhaul of the International Disney Loyalty Program. Martina led the omni-channel program strategy encompassing all elements of loyalty design and implementation, while also customizing for the fans of Disney, Pixar, Star Wars and Marvel Studios. Hi Martina, it's so exciting to have you on the show today. Welcome. Now I'm excited not only because you have such a huge wealth of experience in loyalty across the world, but for me personally, I get to talk to another Austrian woman in loyalty. So fantastic. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm so excited that we have share similar roots. That's was just so exciting. And yeah, very glad to be here.
Good. Well, let's start off. We have two big questions we ask all of our guests. The first one being, tell us about your favorite non-fiction or business book.
Okay, cool. So actually, I think I have a hard time picking one. So I think I'm gonna mention three. Number one, I think in terms of leadership and being how to be a better leader, I think Brené Brown, Dare to Lead, I think was really instrumental for me, and I think a big game changer in terms of how I approach leading teams. So that was, I think, a big one, embracing vulnerability, etc. So yeah, she's also one of my favorite people, I would say, in general. I would say number two would be a book about behavioral psychology. So I'm very interested in how people make decisions and what motivates you to do certain things. So I picked one that actually is called Marketing to Mind States by William Leach, and it's really focusing on what are the key motivators for people as they make personal, but also purchase decisions, and how you basically can help them and nudge them to make good decisions, and basically obviously pick your program, for example, or how to motivate them to make certain actions in your program. So it's around engagement, belonging, empowerment, etc. So very interesting. And then I think I would say the third book I really enjoyed reading, and I think was also a big game changer for me in terms of understanding how different cultures work, because I've been working across the world and I've been dealing with people from different backgrounds, but I'm also marketing to people from different backgrounds. And I think in this case, I would say it's the book, The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. And it really helps you understand how people approach certain situations, right? So for example, some cultures are more task focused, cultures are more relationship focused. So that would be Latin American countries, also Saudi Arabia. Some countries are more hierarchy focused. So you have to keep that in mind. So I think those are the things, and some cultures are more direct versus indirect. So I think those are the things you can use as you work with people from different cultures, but also as you approach your customers in different countries.
I'm so lucky by doing this show and talking to people like you. I get to grow my own personal bookshelf as well. So
Awesome.
I did read the culture map and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're talking to different regions, cultures
Yeah.
across the globe, which is very relevant to Let's Talk Loyalty, that we can understand a little bit about how to interact and respect other cultures, and especially when we're dealing in business scenarios as well. So thank you so much. I always appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.
Next question, of course, is which is your favorite loyalty program?
So I have to say, as a beauty product junkie,
Yeah.
I think for me, Sephora was definitely in the US program was definitely, I would say that they did everything perfectly, right? So I feel like everything from the way how you collect points, but also the non-monetary interactions, how the way the app worked, the benefits, the tiering. So I think they really made me spend so much money there.
They've
So I
done their
think that's
job.
definitely, yeah, they've done the job. So I really have to say, I think that they're doing really well.
That's awesome. And I love the fact that you mentioned Sephora US as well, because that's
Mhm.
such a well-known program. However, has some different intricacies in different countries as well. They
Yes.
have different
Yeah.
iterations of the Sephora program depending on obviously where you
Mhm.
live. So you're specifically loving the US version as well, you'd
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I think because I feel like that's from my perspective so far I've seen is the most sophisticated one. And I think
Mm.
but obviously I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world. So but that's obviously coming from my own personal experience. Unfortunately, we don't have Sephora here in the Netherlands, so that's a little bit yeah, a little bit of a
No good.
bummer. So
Hard to maintain your status then. Not the
yeah, no,
same.
it's the status is gone now. But every time I go to the US, I try to kind of shop, obviously at Sephora, to at least keep some level of yeah, status
Maintain your
there. So
tier.
yeah, you
That is
maintain
good.
material.
It's good. Now, something else you mentioned to me when we caught up previously as well is you're doing a sommelier course of Australian wine. Now, I have to ask you this, being in Australia currently,
Yeah.
can you tell us your favorite so far? What's a great wine that you're loving from Australia?
Okay, so I have to say, so yeah, I'm doing this course, basically learning about this WSET to become eventually maybe become a sommelier. And yeah, so I have to say my favorite wine so far is definitely the Shiraz coming out of
Yes.
Australia because I think it's very interesting how it's different from the Syrah that you see maybe in Europe or in America. But I think the Shiraz because it kind of shows your own path. So I think it's a really wow, it's just so delicious and ah, perfect wine. So yeah.
Good.
Good
Oh,
job.
that's great, especially coming from Austrian wine lover as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's talk about loyalty though.
yeah,
Tell us about your background. How did you start out in the industry?
yeah. So I'm actually come from a more language and art history focus and at the university, but then eventually realized I really wanted to be more on the business side. I started out in PR and then eventually we kind of transitioned into marketing. Started out basically really in the email marketing space and then evolved from there to become really focused on customer marketing. And obviously, loyalty is a big part of customer marketing, making sure our customers are happy and stay with the brand I was working for. I was working across different brands, mostly in the direct-to-consumer space. Started out at T-Mobile, where I was responsible, among other things, for the loyalty program. That was basically my first big loyalty program I managed, and very exciting. And actually, I'm really excited the program is still around
Mm.
and really interesting to learn about what kind of behaviors you want to encourage, how do you motivate people to do certain things, how to also move beyond the monetary aspect of a loyalty program, like this is the collecting points and then obviously redeeming them. So really, how do you create a more additional benefit that's a little bit more beyond the transactional benefits. Then moved on to Nespresso. Again, here loyalty was a little bit more subtle. So we were really focusing on more how do we keep people engaged and loyal beyond having a designated and dedicated loyalty program. And eventually I moved to Disney, and there I was in charge of the loyalty program for the Disney Studios. So very exciting areas, both from wireless industry to FMCG, and then also in the entertainment business. So yeah. And why I think I got into this, I think it's really because I'm just very curious about people's behavior, and what drives people. So I think that empathy aspect, I think got me really excited. But then I also love numbers and understanding people and really using data in order to inform my decisions. So I think that kind of intersection between these two, I think is where my sweet spot is. So
It's the perfect interaction for a loyalty
yeah.
professional, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
such
left
a,
brain, right brain, right? So a little
it's
bit of
so,
both,
so
right?
good.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk about the reimagining of the Disney
Hmm.
program. This is
Yeah.
huge, and you had such a huge role to play here, and in so many areas of a full revamp of such a very, very large program. So can you take us from the start?
Hmm.
You were revamping the entire thing, and
Yeah.
there were so many facets. Where do you start with something that huge?
Yeah, yeah, it was a really huge undertaking. So I joined Disney because they needed someone to actually help them revamp the program. The conversations had already started. There was definitely an understanding of actually where do we take this program. It had been tremendously successful, been around for a long time, but we or the people that basically were on the team, we noticed that obviously we were missing some target groups that I think we were a little bit underrepresented. It also felt a little bit we needed to do a little bit more in terms of engaging customers beyond the transactional part. There they already did a lot there, but I think there was some opportunity there. So it was really first was I think is really understanding, okay, are we going to do this and getting the whole organization to come
Mm.
along on that journey, right? So I think that was the first start that took a little bit of convincing sometimes. And then basically, and then we obviously started the whole path, and it was really no stone left unturned. So we really
Wow.
thought about everything, obviously from the general strategy, moving on to like brand, customer service, the technology. Yeah, it was really basically after the at the end of the project, it really pretty much everything was new. So it was a very yeah, it was a big undertaking and an amazing experience, really. So
This is a big one. So we'll go
yeah,
from the earliest pieces,
yeah,
stakeholder buy-in. How do
yeah,
you even go with that when it's already an established program? It is already working.
yeah,
How did you get stakeholder buy-in to start this revamp?
yeah. So I think that goes back to like psychology and understanding people's motivations, I
Yeah.
think. So obviously that comes very handy here as well. I think the big goal was how do we bring different parts of the organization along for the journey by understanding what drives and motivates them. And there might be some more rational reasons, but there might be also some emotional reasons. And understanding that, I think, was one of the big parts of that
Yeah.
uh, trying to convince people is really like understanding those motivations behind each team's leadership. So we really what we did initially is really bring people from many parts of the organization that we felt like would be instrumental and important for this journey. We brought them along as we were discussing reimagination, and then also we went on actually I think it turned out in the end 3 roadshows.
Wow. So once you've brought your key stakeholders on the journey and they're on
Mhm.
board and then you have their buy-in, what about the member base? How do we
Yeah.
engage them and explain to them that we're relaunching a whole new program?
Yeah. So what we did, a huge part of actually preparation into preparing for the relaunch was really to get the current customers on board for that, but also understanding actually their motivations. Again, coming back to that topic,
Yeah.
motivations and what drives them, right? So we had a ton of customer focus groups. We really tried to go to the bottom. We had some quantitative and qualitative research we've been doing to really get to the bottom of actually what is driving customers. We obviously also looked at the existing data and saw obviously certain patterns that were probably an indicator that maybe people were not as excited about the program. So there was, in
Mhm.
terms of earn rate, for example, so there were a couple of things that we needed to tackle in order to make sure this is becoming a better experience for our existing customers. So again, we brought people in for focus groups, really getting to the bottom and understanding what's driving them, what they like about the current program, what they would love to see, and then really using that input in order to actually drive the strategy for the new program. We also brought in the people the cohorts that actually we wanted to see more represented in the program. So we had separate groups actually where we had people that were not part of the program yet, but were generally interested in loyalty programs. So to also get an understanding, okay, what's holding them back from joining our program right now. So
Oh, I like this. So it's your existing member base, but also your target audience. Who do
yeah,
we want
exactly.
here?
Yeah,
And getting a
yeah,
good understanding. That's great. And I think the next part that I found so interesting when we've talked in the past is the rebranding and the renaming. I mean, you're reimagining a Disney program, right? So
yeah,
how do you approach even rebranding something in that
yeah.
space?
That was a really big undertaking. So I think the first big challenge was really like the renaming, right? So there's obviously within the Disney brand, you obviously have to be very careful in terms of actually what is possible and what is not possible. Then you have to make sure it obviously resonates with customers. And I think in the end, we landed on a really great name that really captured where we wanted to go. But it's a very simple name, but it took us a really long time to get there because obviously naming is a very emotional topic. Obviously, people have very strong opinions sometimes.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of testing on that name too. So we went from the original program was called Disney Movie Rewards, so really focusing on the reward aspect. We then changed it to Disney Movie Insiders to really focus and hone in on that aspect of becoming part of a community. It's
Yeah.
also about the experience and really feeling like you're part of a group of insiders. And I think that really was the reason why we actually decided to move forward with that name.
Absolutely. It definitely resonates for people to be part of something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to be an
Excellent.
insider, right? So yeah.
And the next thing I thought was super interesting is how you approached the tech re-platform and some of the pros and cons you found throughout that journey as well.
Yeah. So we had a really strong technology platform and a big, really amazing partner along the journey before. But there were obviously certain things that we were wanted to do that we were a little bit concerned that maybe the partner was not able to do as of yet. So what we did is we basically went through a big RFP process where we looked at a big array of different vendors, narrowed it down to four, including our current vendor, and really went through like a very thorough process in terms of understanding what their capabilities are, and then decided we would need to go through a replatforming because we just felt there were certain features that our existing vendor was not able to deliver or had not built yet. And so that drove the decision to actually move to a new vendor. And yeah, so very exciting about that. So one big driver was also because we wanted to have an app. So that was something that came up in both the customer and member interviews, but also with the potential customers. So that also became a very important aspect of the program.
Now, one thing I love about this app, and please talk to us, is that personalization and customization of the
Yeah.
interface. So
Yeah.
please talk to us about
Yeah, so I think this was the for me it was one of the coolest features,
that.
and so obviously the Disney company obviously consists of multiple studios. So you have obviously
Mhm.
core Disney, then you have Pixar, then you have Marvel, then you have Star Wars. As you probably can imagine, very different fan bases to a certain extent. There's obviously people who love all of it, but there's going to be some different differences in terms of actually the target groups, right? So Disney is probably more family focused, kids, etc. A little bit more pivoting towards like a female audience. Marvel and Star Wars, as you probably can imagine, are more male focused and probably a little bit on the younger side.
Yeah.
So how do we get these people on board? And the one thing it's such a great idea, I think, was basically we gave you the opportunity as you downloaded the app, you could pick your favorite studio, and then basically that would change the whole interface. So you would basically become a Marvel focused app versus a
Nice,
Disney focused
nice.
app. So we had different
Yeah.
imagery, etc. So yeah, I thought that was very exciting. So
Well, it's good. It appeals to what the people are really, really
yeah,
wanting to see and why
yeah,
they're there in the first place, why they're
yeah,
a Disney
exactly.
insider.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Any key outtakes from your journey at Disney? What would you recommend or some key advice you might give?
Yeah, I would really say I think bringing if you want your loyalty program to be successful and get support for across the different levels of leadership, I think it's really, I think we talked in the beginning, to bring people along for the journey and understanding what drives them. So you might have the finance team that I've probably is more focused on actually profitability, financials, etc. You might have the marketing, other parts of the marketing team that probably care more about how can we reach customers better and really understanding those explicit and implicit motivations. I think the key part if you want to bring people along for the journey. But ultimately, in the end, I think it is important to make sure that actually it's also financially viable. And I think that definitely
Mhm.
became one of the biggest questions we had to answer.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? I think so many loyalty professionals would face that
Yeah,
conversation regularly.
yeah.
You mentioned Nespresso earlier when
Hmm.
you were talking about your journey through loyalty from
Yeah.
T-Mobile, which is a very big Austrian mobile company.
Mm.
One thing I'd love you to talk to us about was something we've discussed in the past around maybe a really cool idea and a surprise and delight that went wrong.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So so that one, yeah, it's still I'm still thinking about this to this day.
It
So
was
I
a good
think
one.
yeah, it was a good one. So, okay, so we had this really great idea. We wanted to reward our most valuable customers with some surprise and delight. So we had this very nice cups, etc. We had like a really nice, it was a really nice targeting. We had some really good, like the way we split the customer base. I thought it was really very well thought through. Um, and we were all really excited about it. What we did not expect is the postal system in Austria obviously had a little bit of a different approach to this. So what happened was we sent basically packages to our customers that were a little bit on the larger side. At some occasions they were not able to be placed in the post boxes, mailboxes. So those went back to the post office. So now obviously people got an alert saying, hey, there's a package for you from Nespresso. Come pick it up. And people obviously got really confused because I didn't order anything. And so there was concern around. So we had a lot of calls to our customer service with concerns around, I didn't order anything. What is this? And yeah, so definitely lesson learned on that one. We then obviously had to figure out actually how do we make sure this packages still get delivered. So we reached out to those customers and let them know. It worked out in the end. It was not a problem in the end, and I think we figured out a good solution. But it was definitely a learning to think about that last step basically in this whole marketing activation. We did not take into account the restrictions of Austrian mailboxes. So yeah, lesson learned.
It's always the last thing to think of, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
but I love
It was
this.
so well thought out, and then really, yeah, the
Such a
team was
beautiful
really
gift
excited.
as well.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful gift. It was beautiful. It was really nice, high quality product. So really, the people who got it were really happy, right?
Yeah, I've no
But
doubt.
that was a little bit, for some, it was a little bit bumpier to get there. So yeah,
Good to note. Very good to note. And no doubt that's still faced across the world in multiple regions, I imagine,
yeah,
the
yeah,
consistency of the postal systems.
yeah.
So if you think about the loyalty industry now and what you're
hmm
seeing, what's your favorite thing about the industry and some of the best things that you see as a consumer and a member these days?
hmm So I feel like that's what I feel like as I go to all these like conferences, etc. I think that what I love is that we're having very honest conversations. I
Mm.
think we're making really good progress in terms of understanding like profitability of loyalty programs, how to position loyalty programs, the incremental value that we generate. I think we're making really strong progress because I feel that was always a little bit of a harder topic to tackle. In and then I think what I see, obviously, there's a lot of opportunity with AI. I mean, I have to mention AI, I think, I guess.
You can't have an
But
interview without saying
yeah,
that
I
now.
guess
Yeah.
it's done now. But I think
It's a
there's
rule.
actually really nice opportunity there, right? Because
Yeah.
it really helps you with personalization, obviously, which is sometimes really hard to do if you have to do it all yours like manually, more or less. But now I think there's a lot of opportunity with that one. So um definitely very excited about that. But I also noticed that maybe on the more cautious side, I think people and loyalty programs are being more scrutinized more
Mhm.
intensely, I think, right now. So I think that's obviously, I think probably good, but also obviously makes us think about how do we approach loyalty going forward, right? So
And are there any areas you think that, look, as an industry, we need to address and we need to do better as a group and as a whole?
that's a really good question. Um, Yeah, I think it's really on in terms of how we position loyalty within the organization. And I think for me, the biggest, and I already mentioned it in the previous answer, I think is really understanding the incremental value we deliver. And I think there's
Mhm.
obviously certain things you can do in terms of actually measuring that. I think we're still not perfect when it comes to that because there's obviously some bias that you see with people signing up for loyalty programs in the first place. And so how do you kind of counter that? But again, as I said, I think we're making great progress. I also think that it's also thinking about what kind of value do you place on a customer information or customer address, or right? Knowing who the customer is. And I think that was also a big discussion in previous companies for me is what's the value of knowing that you, Carly, live in Australia, we know you're buying those certain things. What are actually the benefits of the intrinsic benefits of actually knowing more about
Mm.
you? So I think that's something I feel like it's more between like art and science a little bit, right? You kind of have to kind of
Yeah.
work your way towards that. So,
And
so
an interesting
definitely,
one that we discuss a fair bit is personalization. Everyone talks about
yeah,
personalization, but where's the line around knowing enough to customize versus knowing too much and being creepy?
yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think I had situations in the past where we did we felt very sophisticated, personalized campaigns that maybe were a little bit too much for the customer, and they're like, oh, how do you all know all this? So I think that's I think a big question in terms of when do you have to do everything? Are you going to do everything you can do in terms of personalization, or are you going to kind of keep it a little more nebulous for the customer? So I think that's one thing I would say. I would also say, in terms of as you think about campaigns, um, it's a fine line between becoming like too fragmented in your communication and between the batch and blast and the big campaigns versus actually the hyper personalization. So I think that's going to be like a fine line you probably have to kind of work. And I think it's also different for industries and companies, right? So
Yes, for sure, for sure. So before we finish up, I want to ask you one question. In life and loyalty, what do you know for sure?
it works.
That's
No,
the
it
greatest
works.
answer.
No, I think no, I think people want to belong. And I think if you understand that motivation, I think you can really create a really nice win-win situation for both the customer as well as the company. And I think that coming together, I think makes it a very exciting place to be in general, like in business and in marketing, right? So
So good. That's the best answer. It works.
no, it really works. So yeah.
A huge thank you so much for your time. It's been so lovely to chat with you, Martina. So thank you once again and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.